Sunnybrook Meadows had a reputation for being the picture of suburban perfection. Nestled on the outskirts of a medium-sized city in the United States, the neighborhood was a tapestry of pastel-colored homes lined with white picket fences, each lawn carefully manicured. In the early evenings, you might see parents jogging with strollers, teenagers walking their dogs, and children riding bicycles down broad sidewalks that wove around flower beds and ornate mailboxes. Presiding over all this was the Sunnybrook Meadows Homeowners Association, HOA, which most residents agreed maintained a clean and orderly environment. Yet behind the cheerful facade, tensions sometimes simmered. As with many HOAs, disputes arose over minor yard infractions or the hue of exterior paint. Most were handled politely, unless they involved one particular board member. Her official name was Beatrice Tate, but nearly everyone secretly referred to her as Karen. A trim, middle-aged woman with a stiff bob of sandy brown hair, Karen wore pastel-colored blouses as if they were a uniform, always accompanied by pressed slacks and sensible flats. She was known for brandishing a clipboard like a scepter, patrolling the neighborhood on foot most afternoons, quick to note down any violations of the HOA's extensive rulebook. Many joked, albeit nervously, that Karen lived for confrontation. Parents whispered about how Karen had once scolded a child for chalk drawings that drifted an inch onto the public sidewalk. Teenagers swapped stories of her snatching their skateboards to lecture them on noise pollution. Even older residents found her visits stressful as she measured shrub heights and demanded uniform grass lengths. So while Sunnybrook Meadows gleamed with curb appeal, it was also overshadowed by Karen's iron-fisted approach. Few dared to push back openly, fearing the wave of warning letters or fines she might unleash. Some tried appeasing her, hiding kids' bikes in garages, removing whimsical garden gnomes, just to avoid her wrath. Others tiptoed around her schedule, ensuring any risky activities, like water balloon fights, took place when Karen was least likely to be around. But no one could have predicted how far Karen would take her war on childhood fun, nor the bizarrely vicious tactics she'd employ one sweltering summer afternoon. That single act would rattle the entire neighborhood, exposing just how far Karen was willing to go, and ironically, how her sabotage would backfire in the most unexpected way. Sunnybrook Meadows had few things as delightful as its summer weather. Bright, sunny days, mild humidity, and just enough breeze to keep the heat tolerable. Families often looked forward to this time of year, when kids could roam front lawns, set up lemonade stands, and gather for friendly games. Among the most cherished of these pastimes was the afternoon water balloon fight. For many children, water balloons were a staple of carefree summer living. The squeals of excitement, the splash of bursting balloons, and the temporary relief from the sun's heat formed a highlight of their day. Parents typically allowed such fun, as it kept the kids outdoors, active, and away from digital screens. Sometimes, they even joined in, lobbing a balloon or two with playful glee. In recent years, the Reynolds family on Applewood Lane became the unofficial hosts of these casual water balloon gatherings. Their son, Aiden, was 10 years old, friendly, and always eager to invite neighborhood kids to join in a splashing session. The Reynolds yard was spacious and well-kept, compliant with every HOA rule. Their house stood near the corner, making it easy for kids from multiple blocks to congregate. Aiden's mother, Jenna, usually set out a large bucket of water for filling balloons. She'd place towels and plastic bowls on a fold-out table, ensuring kids could load up quickly. The children would arm themselves with the colorful balloons, then dash around the yard, giggling and shrieking as they tried to drench each other. The afternoon splashes, as the kids called them, had become something of a neighborhood tradition. But tradition or not, Karen despised them. She claimed the leftover balloon fragments could drift onto the sidewalk or end up in the street, which was a possible violation of littering policies, though the Reynolds always made the children clean up the yard afterward. She also complained about the commotion and screaming, labeling it a public disturbance, though the nearest neighbor's property was far enough that no one else minded. Despite Karen's glowering presence in the neighborhood, the kids managed their water balloon games in relative peace, until that fateful day. Desperate to halt the balloon battles she viewed as uncouth, Karen concocted a plan so appalling that even the most lenient neighbors would be forced to act. She would sabotage the water balloons at their source with bleach. The tension over water balloons had been brewing for several weeks. Every so often, Karen would march past the Reynolds house, scowling at the children's happy squeals. She'd stand near the curb, arms crossed, occasionally shouting scoldings. "Keep that racket down. Pick up every shred of balloon, or I'll report you to the HOA. You have no right to soak the sidewalks with water." Aiden and his friends tried to obey the rules. After each session, they thoroughly scoured the yard for broken balloon pieces, tossing them in the trash. Jenna, wanting to keep peace, sometimes bribed the kids with extra ice cream if they cleaned up especially well. Yet no matter how diligent they were, Karen still glared at them as though their play was a crime against Sunnybrook Meadows. One Thursday afternoon, Karen approached Jenna as she was tidying up post-water fight. "Mrs. Reynolds," Karen said icily, "I've reviewed the HOA guidelines. You realize these daily balloon battles are borderline public nuisance. We can't have the entire block subjected to squealing children and water residue all summer." Jenna took a steadying breath. "With respect, Miss Tate, there's no official ban on kids playing water games in their own yards. We always clean up, and we finish by early evening so it doesn't disturb neighbors." Jenna kept her voice polite, mindful that Karen's influence could cause trouble. Karen sniffed. "Children make messes. If I find any evidence that your yard waste is spilling onto common property, we'll have an issue. Mark my words." Jenna forced a tight smile, turning back to pick up the last bits of balloon. She whispered to another parent, "I wish Karen would lighten up. This is harmless fun." The other parent nodded in agreement, rolling her eyes. But Karen was far from lightening up. Her resentment festered, fueled by what she deemed disrespect from the Reynolds. She believed the balloons cheapened the neighborhood's classy atmosphere. Each day she passed the yard, her scowl deepened. No one realized how her hostility would escalate, least of all the kids, who remained blissfully unaware that their beloved pastime was under siege. Late one sweltering afternoon, Karen found the perfect opportunity to enact her twisted plan. Aiden and his friends had just retreated indoors for popsicles and a break from the heat, leaving their water balloon setup temporarily unattended. In the side yard, a large plastic tub half filled with water sat waiting for a fresh batch of balloons. A box of deflated balloons lay on a small patio table, next to a bin of random items like twist ties and balloon nozzles. From her vantage behind the hedge, Karen saw no adults supervising. Jenna had likely run inside to grab snacks or handle chores. The kids' giggles echoed from within the house's open windows. Heart pounding with a strange thrill, Karen clutched a plastic bottle in her handbag. Bleach, pure, pungent, and colorless. She glanced over her shoulder, ensuring no prying eyes. Then she slipped through the side gate, approaching the water tub in stealth. At the tub's edge, she unscrewed the bleach bottle cap. The acrid smell hit her nose, momentarily triggering doubt. Was she really about to do this? She rationalized it as a lesson, a deterrent. If the children discovered their balloons tainted, they'd think twice before staging more water fights. Or perhaps the game would end swiftly once parents realized it wasn't safe. "I'm protecting the neighborhood's tranquility," she told herself, and teaching them to respect HOA rules. With a grim smile, Karen tipped the bleach bottle, letting a hefty glug pour into the water. Tiny bubbles frothed at the surface, the liquid swirling. The faintly sweet odor from the kids' balloon-filling soap, used for slicking balloons shut, was overpowered by the sharp chemical stench. Karen replaced the cap, stowed the bottle in her bag, and slipped away, heart pounding. She didn't stick around to see the children return, only scurried back across the lawn, out the gate, and onto the sidewalk, acting as though she was just passing by. Her mind raced. This should do it, she thought, ignoring the uneasy churn in her gut. They'll smell the bleach, realize the water is ruined, and end these blasted balloon fights. But when children are excited and in a hurry to resume play, they don't always notice subtle signs. And bleach-laced water is far more dangerous than a simple ruined game. Karen's petty sabotage was about to morph into a potential health hazard with far-reaching consequences. Moments after Karen disappeared from sight, the kids bounded back outside, squealing with anticipation for the next round of water balloon fun. Aiden dashed to the plastic tub, rummaging for the stash of unfilled balloons. His friend, Elijah, grabbed a handful of bright green balloons. Laughter filled the air as they hurried to fill them, eager to douse each other again. At first, No one noticed anything amiss. The kids dunked balloons into the water, letting them expand under the faucet nozzle, tying them off with nimble fingers. The pungent smell of bleach didn't immediately register amid the swirl of excitement and the typical slight odor of rubber and soapy water. They were used to that faint chemical whiff from cheap balloons. When you're 10 years old and hyper-focused on fun, subtle differences in scent often go overlooked. But soon, a few children began complaining. "EW, what's that weird smell?" Another child frowned, sniffing a newly filled balloon. "Smells kinda like a swimming pool." Aiden paused, sniffing the tub. His nose wrinkled in confusion. Within seconds, one of the kids squeezed a balloon too tight, causing it to pop, and an unmistakably harsh, chemical scent wafted into the warm air. Some droplets spattered onto the grass. Another balloon popped almost simultaneously, drawing startled yelps from onlookers. Aiden reeled back, eyes watering. "Something's off," he coughed. The balloon splashes clung to his fingers, making them tingle unpleasantly. Alarmed, he dropped the half-tied balloon from his grip. "Hey, my hands kinda sting." His friend Elijah's eyes widened. "Guys, maybe we should tell your mom. This water feels weird." Several kids tossed aside their balloons, stamping them out on the lawn. The stinging smell grew more pronounced. Jenna, drawn by the commotion, rushed out from the house. One glance at the children's anxious expressions and the noxious odor told her something was very wrong. She quickly guided them away from the tub. Her heart hammered as she realized the watery mix had an acrid chemical stench. Kneeling by Aiden, she asked, "Are your hands okay? Does it burn?" He nodded shakily. "It's more tingly than burning, I guess." Jenna ushered them to the outdoor spigot, running fresh water over their hands, telling them not to touch their eyes or faces. In the background, neighbors who'd seen the kids retreat so quickly stepped forward, curiosity turning into alarm. Within moments, they identified the culprit, strong bleach permeating the tub. The same beloved water supply for balloon fights was now hazardous. "Who would do this?" an outraged parent asked, cringing at the chemical reek. Others shook their heads in disbelief. Jenna felt a wave of fear, then fury. Bleach could cause serious harm if ingested or splashed in eyes. "Thank goodness no one tried to drink this or got it in their face," she murmured, hugging Aiden close, grateful the kids seemed safe. Across the street, one neighbor spotted a familiar silhouette retreating behind a hedge. They exchanged a look that said it all. Karen. But they had no proof, yet. Nonetheless, shock and anger rippled through the yard, uniting parents in the realization that someone had deliberately sabotaged children's playtime with a potent chemical. It was an act far beyond a mere annoyance. In the wake of the disturbing discovery, parents scrambled to ensure every child was safe. Anxious mothers rinsed their kids' hands and arms with soap and cold water, double-checking for any sign of rash or chemical burn. Luckily, bleach had only come in fleeting contact with their skin, so beyond mild irritation and a strong smell, no serious harm was evident. Still, a tremor of what-ifs haunted them. What if a balloon had popped closer to someone's eyes? Jenna, tears shining in her eyes, kept repeating, "I can't believe someone did this." Another parent, Ms. Palmer, comforted her. "At least no one was seriously hurt. But we need to figure out who's responsible." Neighbors gathered on the Reynolds lawn, forming a protective circle around the upset children. Some speculated about random teenage vandalism, but the general consensus pointed in a single direction: Karen. They'd all witnessed her hostility and her relentless attempts to curb water balloon games. Now, the question was how to confirm it, and how to respond. While Jenna called the non-emergency police line to report suspected tampering, Ms. Palmer marched to the sidewalk, scanning the hedges. "I saw someone slipping away earlier," she muttered. Another neighbor nodded. "I caught a glimpse of short hair, wearing pastel." Neither had a definitive face-to-face sighting, but that description matched Karen perfectly. They recognized that proving her involvement legally could be difficult. Still, the police said they'd send an officer to take statements, as tampering with household items in a way that endangers children was a serious matter. In the meantime, the parents put out a neighborhood text alert. "Warning, someone poured bleach into a water balloon bucket at Reynolds' house. Keep an eye on your kids." Within hours, the message reached nearly every family in Sunnybrook Meadows. Reactions ranged from shock to rage. Some residents had tried to see the best in Karen, assuming her rigidness stemmed from a misguided sense of duty. Now, many felt that line had been irrevocably crossed. Meanwhile, inside her neatly decorated home, Karen watched from a window as the commotion subsided. She told herself it was a harmless prank, that no one truly got hurt. However, a faint coil of dread tightened in her chest. She realized that if the neighbors suspected her, it might bring real consequences. Yet pride forbade her from remorse. She rationalized that she had protected the neighborhood from raucous balloon fights. Guilt, if she felt it at all, was buried under self-righteous justifications. The next few days brought a flurry of discussions, rumors, and simmering anger in Sunnybrook Meadows. As word spread, families reacted with heightened caution. The Reynolds made it clear to Aiden that water balloon fights were off the table until further notice. No parent wanted to risk a repeat, uncertain if someone, Karen, might sabotage future gatherings. If bleach had been used once, who was to say a more dangerous chemical wouldn't appear next time? Out of an abundance of caution, an informal consensus developed among parents. No more water balloon battles for the remainder of the summer. In group chats, they lamented how one malicious act had robbed the neighborhood children of a cherished pastime, but safety came first. The children groaned in disappointment. For Aiden and his friends, it was a crushing blow. Water balloons had been a highlight of their vacation. At an impromptu parent gathering in Jenna's living room, they weighed how to respond. Some demanded they confront Karen directly. Others worried about legal repercussions, defamation claims, or the difficulty of proving her guilt. "We can't just let this go," Ms. Palmer argued, voice trembling with anger. "She endangered our children." But official evidence was scant. No camera footage captured Karen pouring bleach. The best the neighbors had was eyewitness suspicion. The investigating police officer had taken notes and promised to follow up, but without concrete proof, like a witness seeing Karen in the act or her prints on the bleach container, the case might not go anywhere. Still, morale across Sunnybrook Meadows darkened. The once lively front yard seemed subdued. Kids who used to dash out excitedly for water balloon skirmishes now moped indoors, parents reluctant to let them roam unsupervised. Neighbors whispered about Karen with mounting resentment, though she kept a conspicuously low profile, not patrolling with her usual vigor. People saw the blinds drawn on her house, her car seldom leaving the driveway. They wondered if she was avoiding the scrutiny or plotting the next step in her crusade. Whichever it was, the sabotage had created a deep rift. A toxic cloud of fear and mistrust lingered where carefree laughter once reigned. One evening, a small group of parents and a couple of HOA board members, fed up with the negativity, gathered at the community center to brainstorm solutions. They recognized that forcibly confronting Karen might escalate tensions. Instead, they wanted a positive approach that restored summer fun for the children, without the risk of sabotage. Among them was Linda Garcia, an HOA board member with a more moderate stance. She'd clashed with Karen in the past, though never this severely. Linda believed the HOA should sponsor family-friendly activities that didn't rely on easily tampered items like water balloons. "If we let fear of sabotage destroy our community spirit, then Karen, if she's guilty, wins," Linda said, garnering nods of agreement. Another parent suggested some alternative watery fun that was less easy to sabotage, like sprinklers, slip-in slides, or a misting party. No one could easily dump bleach in a bunch of sprinklers simultaneously, especially if they were running from multiple hoses. A mother from Elm Street chimed in. "How about a water mister party? We could set up hoses, misters, maybe even a small splash pad. The kids can run around safely, no balloons needed." The energy in the room brightened as they fleshed out the concept. Location: the large communal green space near the tennis courts, central enough for all families. Activities: sprinklers arranged in a row, kiddie pools, small water slides, and misting arches built from PVC pipes. Date: a Saturday afternoon, so everyone could attend. Signage: encourage safe water play, zero tolerance for sabotage or negativity. The group decided to propose this event under the official HOA banner, overshadowing any claim that it was unruly. Linda Garcia agreed to pitch it at the next HOA meeting, emphasizing how it would unify families after the bleach incident. Everyone loved the idea, a big, open water event that no single saboteur could easily ruin. Sure, It wouldn't replicate the exact thrill of water balloons, but it might be even better with more robust water features, official support, and adult supervision. They hoped the kids would embrace it as a fresh tradition. If successful, the Water Mister Party might become an annual fixture. In hushed tones, they acknowledged that Karen, if indeed the culprit, would hate the idea. But ironically, her destructive acts spurred the community to create something bigger and safer. That, they agreed, was the best revenge, turning adversity into a celebration of togetherness. When Linda Garcia brought the Water Mister Party proposal to the HOA's monthly meeting, the air was charged with recent events. Normally, HOA discussions revolved around landscaping budgets or fence color approvals. This time, the Bleach sabotage hovered like a dark cloud, though no one named Karen openly. Linda stood at the podium in the community center's multipurpose room. "We've all heard about the unfortunate incident that ended the kids' water balloon activities," she began tactfully. In response, many neighbors suggested a new approach, a community-sponsored day of safe water fun. "I propose we hold a Water Mister Party on the central green, featuring sprinklers, hoses, and small pools. We'd have volunteers, sign-ups, and official oversight to ensure a safe, enjoyable environment." There were murmurs of support from the audience. Some board members nodded, recognizing the public relations angle. A big, positive event would mitigate the negative press swirling around the Bleach incident. Mr. Calvin, the HOA president, asked a few logistical questions about scheduling and expenses. Linda explained they'd gather donated hoses, sprinklers, and bring personal supplies, so the cost to the HOA would be minimal, possibly just some signage and a small refreshment budget. Karen, who usually sat near the front to scowl at suggestions she didn't like, was conspicuously absent. Several people noted the empty seat with relief, while a few worried she might still show up. After a brief discussion, the board voted in favor of the Water Mister Party. The date was set for 2 Saturdays hence, from noon to 4 p.m. They agreed to post official notices in the neighborhood bulletin, encouraging families to attend. In the following days, an unexpected wave of enthusiasm swept Sunnybrook Meadows. Volunteers formed a planning committee, donating slip-in slide mats, pop-up tents for shade, and portable fans. Jenna Reynolds offered to bring fruit popsicles. Others chipped in with iced drinks, watermelon slices, and a sign-up sheet for potluck dishes. Social media chatter about the event soared. The children, initially glum about losing their balloon battles, perked up at the idea of a bigger water extravaganza. "Wait, so there'll be giant sprinklers? And we can run through them?" asked Aiden excitedly. Jenna confirmed it. "Absolutely. And we'll have music too." A sense of renewed excitement replaced the gloom that had fallen over the block. Little did Karen suspect that her sabotage had ignited the impetus for an even larger-scale water celebration, one she'd have almost no chance to sabotage without drawing immediate attention. As the date of the Water Mister Party approached, buzz spread throughout the neighborhood. Kids chattered at bus stops about the sprinklers and mini pools. Parents arranged carpool schedules to haul supplies. The HOA posted official signage. Community Water Mister Party, Saturday, December 4th p.m. Families welcome. Hosted by the Sunnybrook Meadows HOA. Even older residents, often indifferent to children's activities, expressed mild curiosity, seeing the event as a statement of unity. Meanwhile, Karen maintained a reclusive presence. Some neighbors saw her peering through her curtains at passers-by, or scurrying to her car quickly to avoid contact. Rumors circulated that a few brave souls had confronted her about the Bleach incident, only for her to flatly deny any involvement. She insisted it was probably a teenage prank, deflecting blame. But the scorn directed at her was thick in the air. No one believed her innocence. On the morning of the Water Mister Party, volunteers arrived early at the central green. They hammered stakes for banners, set up sprinklers in designated areas, and tested the water pressure from multiple spigots. Children ran around squealing at the sight of slip-in slides. Linda Garcia oversaw the final details, ensuring the snack table and sign-in booth were properly arranged. Jenna Reynolds coordinated the station where kids could fill water cups to spray each other, but no balloons. As she taped up a "No Balloons" sign, a wave of sadness flickered across her face. She missed the simpler days when Aiden and his pals played freely in her yard. Then again, seeing the community rally was a silver lining. An hour before the event officially started, a hush fell across the green when Karen arrived. She wore her usual pastel blouse and clutched her clipboard like a shield. A hush of unease ran through the volunteers. Miss Palmer, bristling, whispered, "What does she think she's doing here?" To everyone's shock, Karen walked around, scanning each setup with an air of disapproval. She tapped her pen on the slip-in slide. "Is this authorized? Are we sure it won't damage the grass?" Linda stepped forward, frowning. "The board approved this event, Karen. All standard disclaimers about potential lawn wear are waived for the day." Karen's lips tightened. She pointed at a kiddie pool. "Make sure no one leaves those lying around to breed mosquitoes afterward." Linda nodded curtly. "Of course. Everything is monitored." After a few more tense remarks, Karen retreated to a bench at the edge of the green, scribbling on her clipboard. Observers cast wary glances, suspecting she was searching for any excuse to disrupt. But with so many families around, she couldn't easily sabotage the water setups. This gathering was too big, too open, and Karen was under too much suspicion. All she could do was watch with a pinched expression, her presence an unwelcome shadow on an otherwise festive day. When noon struck, the Water Mister party kicked off in earnest. Parents guided their children into the designated zones, turning on sprinklers and letting arcs of water glisten in the sunlight. Squeals of joy echoed across the green as kids darted through the sprays, arms raised in delight. The slip-and slide glistened with soapy water, turning the grass into a laughter-filled runway. A couple of older teens helped manage lines, ensuring safe distances between sliding children. Under pop-up tents, neighbors mingled, sipping iced lemonade or nibbling fruit skewers. One table offered face painting with water-resistant designs, courtesy of a local volunteer. Another showcased a water safety booth, handing out tips on safe summer play, an indirect nod to the dangers they'd faced. Music floated from portable speakers, cheery tunes that accentuated the day's playful spirit. Linda Garcia roamed the event, greeting families and ensuring everything ran smoothly. Jenna Reynolds, wearing a wide-brimmed sun hat, dished out popsicles to a line of eager kids, including her own son Aiden, who was having a blast dashing between sprinklers. "This is amazing, Mom," he exclaimed, grinning ear to ear. A subdued tension lingered around Karen's vantage point. She remained on the periphery, occasionally muttering about water waste or children screaming. But with the full endorsement of the HOA, she had no official grounds to halt the festivities. Everyone ignored her grumbling. Indeed, many gave her a wide berth, disgusted by the suspicion that she'd nearly harmed children with bleach. As the afternoon wore on, a subtle shift occurred. Families realized they were enjoying this big, communal water party more than the old balloon fights. The variety of sprinklers, the slip-and slide, and the laughter shared among neighbors created a joyful camaraderie. Parents who rarely chatted found themselves bonding over shared snacks. Teen volunteers led playful games like water limbo under the spraying hoses. "Sometimes adversity brings out something even better," Miss Palmer commented to Jenna, nodding at the frolicking kids. Jenna agreed quietly, a bittersweet feeling in her chest. She'd still never forgive the bleach attack, but seeing children's faces alight with unbridled joy soothed her heart. By late afternoon, the Water Mister party wrapped up with a round of applause from everyone. Volunteers turned off hoses, kids toweled off, and families lingered to chat. Linda Garcia stood on a small makeshift stage, thanking all for their attendance. "You've made this event a huge success," she announced, voice bright. "We came together after a troubling incident, and together we've created something truly wonderful." A roar of approval rose from the crowd. Karen, arms folded tightly, slipped away before the final cheer, as though the positivity stung her. Yet ironically, her sabotage had driven the neighborhood to stage the biggest, safest water event Sunnybrook Meadows had ever seen. In the days following the Water Mister party, Sunnybrook Meadows basked in the afterglow of a triumphant event. Messages poured in on the neighborhood's social media group, praising the volunteers and the HOA for organizing such a memorable day. Parents posted pictures of beaming children darting through sprinklers, slip-and-slide action shots, and group selfies. Though folks still missed the simplicity of home-based balloon fights, few denied that the new arrangement had been a rousing success. Meanwhile, the police investigation into the Bleach incident continued, albeit slowly. Officers had interviewed neighbors who claimed to see a woman matching Karen's description sneaking around the Reynolds yard, but none had a clear, definitive look at her face. Without conclusive evidence, they couldn't press charges. Privately, many believed Karen was guilty. Publicly, they could do little but keep watch. Karen herself retreated further from the community's social sphere. Her usual daily patrols ceased. When she did emerge to attend obligatory HOA board meetings, she stuck to official business, carefully avoiding references to the Bleach fiasco. But in private, she felt the weight of neighbors' scorn. People no longer offered polite greetings or half-smiles. Children crossing the street gave her a wide berth, as if she were a witch from a storybook. All the power she once wielded with her clipboard seemed hollow now that no one respected her. Within the HOA leadership, Linda Garcia and other moderate voices pushed for more open, inclusive community events. They reasoned that if one person's bitterness could cause such harm, the best counter was a robust sense of unity. Plans began forming for a harvest block party in the fall, building on the success of the Water Mr. Party's communal spirit. On her front porch, Jenna Reynolds sometimes watched Aiden and his friends playing sidewalk chalk or riding bikes, reflecting on how a single vile act had almost shattered their carefree summer. Yet in stepping away from balloons, they discovered an even greater sense of belonging. That knowledge comforted her, although the thought of Karen lurking behind the scenes remained unsettling. Still, life moved on. The Bleach sabotage became one of those shocking local tales, retold whenever folks discussed neighborhood drama or warned newcomers about the resident Karen. But the real story overshadowing it was how the neighbors had turned that sabotage into impetus for a grand event, forging stronger bonds than ever. By the time the late summer sun began shifting toward cooler evenings, Sunnybrook Meadows had settled into a new normal. Kids still played outdoors, though water balloons, once a daily fixture, remained absent. Instead, mini sprinkler gatherings or slip-and-slide afternoons dotted the lawns. Families felt safer with these less tamperable activities, and the memory of the bleach-laced bucket served as a cautionary tale about vigilance. Karen's isolation persisted. Rumors floated that she might sell her house and move away, but they were unconfirmed. Occasionally, people glimpsed her scowling face behind curtained windows. Some neighbors privately hoped she would leave, believing trust between her and the rest of the community was irreparably broken. For Jenna Reynolds, the ordeal left a lasting imprint. She no longer viewed Sunnybrook's facade of perfection as a guarantee of harmony, realizing any place could harbor a troubled individual. Yet she also saw the resilience that sprang from adversity. While her son's favorite pastime had been stolen, the response created an even broader sense of unity among families. One weekend, a small group of children, including Aiden, tried to reintroduce balloon games. This time, carefully supervised by parents and with a closed container that no one could access unnoticed. They managed a short, joyous fight in the Reynolds yard, finishing with thorough cleanup. And no sabotage occurred that day. Perhaps Karen recognized the futility, or perhaps she never even left her house. After all, the parents had set watchful eyes at each entrance, ready to pounce at the slightest suspicious movement. And so, Sunnybrook Meadows carried on. Memories of the Bleach incident lingered like a faint scar, but it did not define the neighborhood. Instead, residents clung to the triumph of the Water Mr. Party, a spirited reminder that when faced with malice, communities can rally together to protect their children and affirm their values of camaraderie and fun. In the end, Karen's sabotage, born of fury and hostility, ironically birthed a new tradition, the annual Water Mr. Party, that united families more than any single yard game ever had. Every future summer, sprinklers and hoses replaced the ephemeral pop of balloons, and children discovered deeper friendships forged under arcs of water droplets shimmering in the sunshine. And if you wandered by on one of those afternoons, you'd see their gleeful screams of delight echo across the lawns, testifying to a simple truth. No matter how a single bitter soul might try to douse their joy, a community bound by care and creativity always finds a way to shine brighter and soak the summer in laughter than any saboteur could ever imagine.